This is our 5th bonus episode, and this one is all about Sir Roger Moore.
Sir Roger Moore, of course, the third actor to play James Bond in the franchise. And as we've said before, we're going to release a special bonus episode on each of the actors that have played Bond in the Eon film franchise. So let's get into this one, Jay. Tell me about Roger Moore.
So as usual, we're going to do a little bit of a bio. So name at birth was Roger Jules Moore. He was born 14th of October 1927, so he's actually older than Sean Connery. His star sign is a Libra. His place of birth is London, England. He sadly died on the 23rd of May 2017, aged 89 years.
Roger had 3 children. We mentioned during the main pod in season 1 of the Rating Room, Deborah Moore. And now she's made 2 appearances in a James Bond related role. She was in the 1989 GoldenEye, The Secret Life of Ian Fleming film/documentary. And also she made a cameo appearance as a flight attendant in the film Die Another Day. And not only that, she's appeared in the TV movie Merlin, The Quest Begins, which starred Sean Connery's son, Jason Connery. So there's another tenuous Bond link there. Moore was an only child. He was married 4 times. Dawn Van Stein, apologies if I've got that name pronounced incorrectly. He was married to Dawn Van Stein from 1946 to 1953. Then married to Dorothy Squires from 53 to 68. Then his third wife was Louisa Mattioli from 69 to 2000. And then Christina Tholstrup. He was married to Moore from 2002 until Moore's death in 2017.
As usual, we're kind of doing a little segment about what the actor did before James Bond. So I'm going to kick us off with this section. So Roger Moore was an apprentice at an animation studio, but was fired when he made a mistake with some of the animation celluloids. He was introduced to a film director when his father was investigating a robbery at the director's home. This led to Moore getting hired as an extra on the 1945 film Caesar and Cleopatra. Moore spent 3 terms at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art and was a classmate of the original Miss Moneypenny actress Lois Maxwell, which we obviously discussed in our main season 1 episodes.
After the end of World War II, Moore was conscripted for national service and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Royal Army Service Corps. He eventually became captain in the Combined Services Entertainment Section and commanded a small depot in West Germany where he looked after entertainers for the armed forces. In the 40s, Moore appeared in a range of uncredited roles, and in the 50s he worked as a model and appeared in a range of print adverts. He also travelled to the US and started to work in TV.
Moore later found his first success playing Ivanhoe in the TV series in 1958 to 1959. Incidentally, Robert Brown, who played M in the Bond franchise, also featured in Ivanhoe. Roger Moore had a very successful career before playing Bond. He played the lead role in The Saint as Simon Templar, and co-starred with Tony Curtis in The Persuaders as Lord Brett Rupert George Robert Andrew Sinclair. So a bit of a mouthful there. Moore was paid £1 million for 1 season of The Persuaders, which made him the highest paid TV actor in the world. And then just to kind of go off script, I remember my parents watching The Saint and The Persuaders not when I was a kid, but I don't know if it's the same with your dad. My parents, especially my dad, had a tendency to watch a lot of kind of UK gold when I was growing up. So I always remember lots of TV programs in black and white, even though it was like the 80s and 90s, and these kind of 70s, 60s programs as well, which you would always be watching. I remember Roger Moore being in The Persuaders and The Saint during, growing up.
Yeah, my dad, I think, was a big fan of The Saint. Not sure about The Persuaders, could well have been, but yeah, he's of that generation as well, where he tends to watch the older dramas and sitcoms because they don't make them like they used to in his day, do they? I did have a question though on his role in The Persuaders. Do you think he ever did the introduction? The name Sinclair, Lord Brett Robert George Robert Andrew Sinclair.
That's I don't know. That is a very long name. As part of that research, it was like, blimey, that is, yeah. I wonder what he does, because I can't remember The Persuaders because obviously I was a kid, so I can't remember how he introduced himself. But I wonder whether he did, Andy. He's missing a trick if he did. He's got to shorten it, hasn't he? He can't be saying that every time he meets someone.
No, that's half the episode gone if that's how he's introduced himself. But it wouldn't be long before he was introducing himself as Bond James Bond. He played the role of Bond between 1973 and 1985, featuring in 7 movies as Bond, the most in the Eon-produced franchise. He's also the oldest actor to date to play Bond. He began the role at age 45, finishing at age 58. Moore states in his autobiography that he had to cut his hair and lose weight for the role. And although he resented having to make those changes, he was finally cast as James Bond in Live and Let Die.
So as always, we're just going to recap on the rating room rankings for each of the Bond actors, and obviously today we're focusing on the Roger Moore films. So as Andy mentioned, Roger Moore has appeared in 7 Bond movies in the franchise, and I'm going to go through my rankings of the 7 films. I'm going to start from the top place film, which was The Spy Who Loved Me, and I gave it 7 out of 10, so a very strong 7 out of 10. And For Your Eyes Only also gave 7 out of 10, but as we said in our main season, we're not having any films in tied position, so we're going to have a nice straight 20, films in 25 order here. So For Your Eyes Only is 2nd place. Live and Let Die I have in 3rd place with 6 out of 10. Octopussy in 4th place with 6 out of 10. And now the last 3 films all have 5 out of 10, but in the order I put them in was A View to a Kill, Moonraker, and then The Man with the Golden Gun was in last place. So out of the 7 films, so that's a possible 10 for per film, the Roger Moore films have got 41 out of 70. And that gives us an average of, gives my average of the Moore films 5.9 out of 10. So not the strongest there out of the Bond actors. What about you, Andy? How did you rank those 7 films?
Yes, I was just looking down your list compared to mine. And in terms of the order, we don't have a single film that matches. And in terms of the scores, we have, I think, 3 matches, maybe 4 matches. But I've been a bit more, dare I say, erratic, or more extreme with my highs and lows. We'll get into that. You'll know what I mean. So my top Roger Moore Bond film was Live and Let Die, which I gave 8 out of 10. This is followed by A View to a Kill with 7 out of 10. For Your Eyes Only in 3rd place with 7 out of 10. And The Spy Who Loved Me in 4th place with 7 out of 10. I've then gone with Octopussy, 6 out of 10. Followed by The Man with the Golden Gun, 5 out of 10. And to any long-time listeners out there, no surprise at all, in last place, and by quite some margin, Moonraker with 3 out of 10. But what that meant in terms of my average was I was slightly higher with a total of 43 out of 70, so an average of 6.1.
That's interesting anyway. You said there's not actually any of the films in the same order, but we've got some with the same score. So that's a good observation. I think mine were, like you said, yours were more, I don't know if you say erratic or not. The gap between my highest and lowest was only 2 points, whereas yours was a lot more, which obviously, even though there's only 2 points difference bottom line, 41 to your 43, I've gone fairly similar. Like I said, there's only 2 difference, whereas you've got a 5 difference, haven't you, between your top and bottom film.
Yeah, you've been very consistent with your ratings for Moore. I've gone with the approach of if I like it, I really like it, and if I don't, I really don't, is what the ratings would suggest. But we ended up in a very similar position in the end. So that's quite fascinating how we can go 2 different routes and end up in basically the same destination. There's probably a life lesson in there for someone.
Just looking at that, Andy, the bottom 2 of both our list are the same, just opposite way round. But then the remaining 5 are quite different. Octopussy is only 1 difference, but your Live and Let Die is in 1st place, whereas it's in 3rd place for me. A View to a Kill is in 2nd place for you, and then 5th place to me. But then For Your Eyes Only, you've only got 1 difference. The Spy Who Loved Me, you've got 4th place, I've got in top place. So there's only, I would say, what would you say, 2 films that are the biggest difference, The Spy Who Loved Me and Live and Let Die? And potentially A View to a Kill as well, whereas the others are within 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, it was. There's some major differences, some nuances, I would say. I'd have to re-go over our notes, and maybe the listeners out there can remember from previous episodes. Did we have the same kind of outcome for the other actors? Did we have massive differences of opinion for Connery, or were we quite consistent? And in future episodes, I guess the same question will be asked of Dalton, Brosnan, and Craig. So watch this space. Of course, Roger Moore played a number of roles outside of Bond, so little note, after his final outing as Bond in 1985, he didn't act on screen for 5 years following that role. He had a very successful TV career, as we mentioned above. I'm going to just list a few other TV roles that he's appeared in. So he was in North Sea Hijack, The Man Who Haunted Himself, and The Naked Face, to name but a few. Jay, have you got any more that you want to add to that list?
Shout at the Devil, The Man Who Wouldn't Die, and then The Sea Wolves are just 3 other ones that we've picked out.
Yeah, so the next section is what we're dubbing the rating room favourites. Now, this is where we usually go through about 5 films each that we both enjoy outside of the James Bond franchise, which listeners of bonus episode 3 remember we did for Sean Connery. We didn't do so much for Lazenby because we're not really familiar with Lazenby's work and it was very limited. And in all honesty, although the list of roles is longer for Roger Moore, neither of us are particularly familiar with his work outside of the Bond franchise. So we're going to skip this section again. I do apologise for anyone who was looking forward to listening to that, but we wouldn't be doing it justice if we continued. So let's move on to the next section, Jay.
This is the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. So I'm going to pick off the top 5 Moore films based on Rotten Tomatoes. So we got 3 James Bond films actually in the top 5 of Rotten Tomatoes. So we got The Spy Who Loved Me, released in 1977 with a fresh rating of 81% and an audience score of 76%. Then we've got The Last Time I Saw Paris, which was 1954, 78% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and 50% audience score. For Your Eyes Only, 1981, and it's a 69% fresh rating and 64% audience score. The Wild Geese, which was 1978, and as a fresh rating of 67% and an audience score of 75%. And in 5th place was Live and Let Die, which is obviously another James Bond film, released in 1973, and it has a fresh rating of 65% and an audience score of 64%. So you're looking at the top 5 films ranging between 65 and 81%, so pretty good scoring there on Rotten Tomatoes. What about IMDb, Andy?
So plenty of crossover between Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. 4 of the 5 that you've mentioned appear in this list. And interestingly, 4 of the 5 in this list are Bond films. So, like Rotten Tomatoes, top of the list is The Spy Who Loved Me, which received a rating of 7. Second place is The Wild Geese, released in 78, which received a rating of 6.8. Then in third we have For Your Eyes Only, which received a 6.7, followed by Live and Let Die, which received a 6.7, and then the difference in the list is number 5 for IMDb was The Man with the Golden Gun, released in 1974, which also got a 6.7. So there's quite a bit of consistency there. The Last Time I Saw Paris doesn't appear in the IMDb top 5, and when I think back to what you just said around the audience ratings, that was actually the lowest of the 5. Although it had a fresh rating of 78, the audience rating was only 50%. So that would probably explain why IMDb didn't rate it quite so highly.
I'm a little bit surprised with the IMDb rankings of the 4 Bond movies, actually, Andy. I would have thought some of those would have scored a bit higher, if I'm being honest. Because Live and Let Die, 6.7, and I gave it 6, you gave it 8. So I was expecting to see that one a little bit higher, if I'm being honest. But otherwise, you got The Spy Who Loved Me, which I thought was a strong film. You had it mid-table. For Your Eyes Only, I had it in second. You had it in third, so you're expecting those. One thing I did find surprising was The Man with a Golden Gun in his top 5 IMDb ratings. I was half expecting Moonraker to be appearing on there. So The Man with the Golden Gun didn't make our top 5 at all in terms of the Roger Moore films.
Yeah, there does seem to be a disconnect there. I mean, we didn't say it was a top 5 Moore film, and I would say it was one of the weaker Bond films overall. So very surprised to see that on IMDb. Also surprised that it essentially got equal rating with For Your Eyes Only and Live and Let Die. But what do we know? We're just two fans. We're not movie critics. So maybe our unprofessional eyes were seeing them wrong.
Maybe.
Let's move on to talk about some awards and honours. So Roger Moore was nominated several times during his career and won several awards as well. I've got a list of nominations and awards to go through as well. I'll kick us off with the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films, USA. Roger Moore was the winner in 1980 for Most Popular International Performer.
And Roger Moore he's been nominated and he's won several awards in Germany. So I found that quite fascinating, where certain actors might have a greater appeal in certain countries. I'm thinking totally non-related in terms of James Bond, Andy. David Hasselhoff, from Baywatch, he apparently has a big following in Germany. And it seems Roger Moore also has a bit of a following in Germany. So in Roger Moore's career, he's had 2 Bambi Awards for The Persuaders and a Lifetime Achievement Award as well. And then he's got 2 Bravo Otto Awards for Best Actor in 81 and Best Male TV Star in 1967.
Very prestigious awards, but I think we're going to up the prestige now with the Golden Globe Awards. So in 1980, he won the Henrietta Award, which was the World Film Favourite Male. So that's quite the achievement. During his career, he's also received several awards to recognise exceptional achievements in the arts. Again, we've got a small list to work through here, but I'll start us off with a couple. He was given the Commander of the Order of Arts and Letters from France in 2008, and he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2007.
He also got a CBE in 1999, which is the Commander of the Order of the British Empire, and he also got a KBE in 2003, which is Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Just before I move on, Andy, one thing regarding the Henrietta Award. Do you recall which other Bond actor had nominations and also won a Henrietta Award?
I don't recall, but I'm going to guess Connery.
Indeed. So Sean Connery, which, as Andy mentioned, is the Henrietta is the world film favourite male. Sean Connery was actually nominated in 1965, 1968 and 1972. And as we mentioned in the bonus episode for Sean Connery, he won the award in 1972. So Andy, we've had 3 bonus episodes where we talk about the James Bond actors, and 2 of them so far have won a Henrietta Award for Best International Male, favourite male.
What's that old saying? 2 out of 3 ain't bad?
I guess so. I've not heard that one.
It's a Meatloaf song.
Is it?
I thought you'd have got that from your childhood. You were born in the late 60s, early 70s, weren't you?
I only know 2 songs about Meatloaf, and that's the is it Bat Out of Hell, and the one that he like a Beauty and the Beast theme.
I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Yeah.
Both songs combined actually last about 4.5 hours.
So you could have Gettysburg on the background, couldn't you, Andy?
Indeed. There's a reference to an episode we recorded several weeks ago. Or whenever, it depends when you're listening to this.
As we've said, we're planning to continue to record a bonus episode for each of the Bond actors. And as we've said before, it's going to be interesting to see. So, as we mentioned, Sean Connery has had quite a distinguished film career. Jules Lazenby, we haven't seen him do much outside of the James Bond franchise, where he obviously only did 1 film. Roger Moore's career seemed to focus a lot more on TV roles, and he had a very successful career before Bond. So it's going to be interesting, Andy, when we get to Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, because, I'm thinking Pierce Brosnan, I've seen him in other stuff. Daniel Craig, I've seen him in other stuff. Timothy Dalton, I've seen him in other stuff, but I think the Timothy Dalton ones, I seem to recall I've seen him in films that he did after Bond. I don't really remember much about Dalton before Bond. I don't know if anything jumps out before we get to... I know that's a bit of a spoiler, isn't it, before we even get to the bonus episode about Dalton. But I wonder if it's going to be more... When we do Dalton's episode, it's going to be more focused on after Bond.
Yeah, nothing stands out, but we'll do a bit of research between now and then, see if anything jogs my memory. But you're right about Roger Moore. His career seemed to be very successful in TV before it translated into film, particularly in Bond. And we're probably not doing him justice by the fact that we don't know much of his work outside of the Bond franchise. But it seems like, as we mentioned for Lazenby, we should probably give Moore a chance outside of the Bond multiverse to see just what his acting chops were really like, because there's probably a lot out there we could research, we could look at to really give us a full rounded view of Roger Moore, the actor.
I think I'm going to talk to my dad about Roger Moore, because like I said, he's watched a lot of the Persuaders, and I think I'm going to set myself some homework, and I can kind of report in a future episode, because I think I'm going to either look out for a Roger Moore film or watch a few episodes of The Saint or The Persuaders. I'm going to set myself some homework. What are you going to do? Are you going to do some homework in terms of looking out for a Roger Moore film or a TV show, maybe?
Yeah, I'm gonna Google feedback, some ratings, some suggestions. But I think The Saint, that's one I can talk to my dad about, see what his view is, and maybe if there's a box set out there, give me something to do on a lonely weekend night.
Yeah, so we've set some homework for ourselves, and we can either drop it in, can't we, Andy, on our social media accounts, or maybe before one of our bonus episodes we can give a quick update, can't we, to our listeners in terms of what we've done. So yeah, we've set that out. I might even try to get the wife to watch it, Andy, and see what she thinks. So she would love me for that, watching an old film, because she doesn't really like watching old films. So let's see what happens.
You old romantic. Yeah, we'll set ourselves that homework. In the meantime, any listeners out there, I'd love to hear from you in terms of your favourite Roger Moore TV shows and films. Was playing Bond the pièce de résistance of the Moore career, or was he actually just using it as a stepping stone for bigger and better things that we're just not aware of? Use our usual social media accounts, website, whatever, to contact us. Let us know what you think. And in the meantime, listen out for future bonus episodes, the next one being on Timothy Dalton. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you soon on The Rating Room.
Well, that's this week's episode done. We hope you enjoyed it.
Special thanks to the band Sugar Tongue for the theme tune to The Rating Room. You can find them on all the usual social media channels. And be sure to check out their song The System, available now on Spotify.
You can find and message us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok and Instagram by searching The Rating Room.
You'll find all our social media links on our website, theratingroom.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or feel free to drop us an email at theratingroom@gmail.com. Goodbye, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week, right here on The Rating Room.